I have 3 minutes after 7. It appears that...
Five.
5.
You might want to check that.
I have 3 minutes after 5. Would you like to be president tonight? And it appears that a quorum is here. So we'll call this meeting to order. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
President Terrio?
Present.
Member Ferrer?
Here.
Member Collins?
Here.
Thank you.
Having a quorum, we will proceed to item number 1 on the, pursuant to the open meeting law. Very important. Any person may make an audio or video recording of this meeting, this public meeting, or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We will move to item number 1 on the agenda is citizen input.
So I don't have any formal citizens input. I just want to make the board aware. So prior to the meeting today, I did receive a call from a concerned citizen about the leak abatements and how they're displayed on the agenda. We will be reviewing that policy and may have adjustments to the leak abatement policy in the future for the board to approve for the administrative end of it.
We could bring that up in the coming year at a meeting. All right, great. Yeah, that's fine with me. We want to make sure that we're handling those properly. Nothing else under citizen input. Item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes of the November 3rd meeting are approved. Proposed leak abatements. Why don't we, since we're going to change that, the way these are displayed, why don't we just jump to an approval of the total, or do you want to dissect them?
Yeah, if there's any questions of them individually, the board has been provided the sheet. Basically, it runs through with all of the ones that meet the minimum criteria of the abatement policy, have a calculated amount for credit based on the policy amount. Ones that did not meet the minimum requirements of the policy are recommended for denial.
We have a total of $7,072.03 of abatements. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the abatement of $7,072.03 if there are no other questions.
Motion to approve as listed.
Motion, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Leaving that one behind. Very interesting. Woodward and Curran. Now, item number 4 is the Woodward and Curran. If you could just hang on for 1 second. Okay. South Watuppa getting ahead of myself. South Watuppa Pond Watershed Management Study, Phase 3, $25,000. Mr. Clerk.
So this amendment continues on the work that we've been doing on South Watuppa Pond. We've done a lot. We had a public outreach meeting this past fall to kind of let the residents know what's been going on. We've been lucky enough to be able to get a fair amount of grant funding, ARPA funding. So this so far, besides our staff time and assistance that we've provided, really hasn't cost our ratepayers much to work on improving the water quality of the South Watuppa Pond. This small $25,000 contract, what we're calling Phase 3, is going to look at and balance the external loading. So that's one of the things that's been talked about a lot, so that we can really narrow down to see what's inside the pond. We did some sedimentation sampling this past year. and some different things. So we really need to, we've identified the point loads that are coming in, the streams or drainage areas. What we really need to do is quantify that. Potentially what comes in and how much comes in those particular areas to balance that off. And essentially you end up making a bank where, all right, you figure 75% comes from your sediment, 25 from your inflow, or maybe your 40% from your inflow, 60% maybe, you know, however that works out, that's really going to be a key part for us to be able to explain and understand how much we would want to invest in the in-pond treatment for a short fix compared to how much we're going to need to do on the long-term larger fix of the watershed.
You're looking at sediment and chemical analysis of the sediment?
This is actually taken and really quantifying the amount of water that's coming in.
Quantifying the water.
Correct, exactly. So we're looking at big things: Sucker Brook, Stony Brook, the interceptor drain, some of those major point sources, and how much water they may be carrying in.
At the end of the agenda, I would like to take a couple of minutes and just talk about something that the other commissioners, or I could just mention it at this point. I've been going over the old records of the department going back to 1870, and I've been making lists of highlights. And one of the things I discovered, and we'll get to this in a little bit briefly, is that they had a weir of some sort, and they measured the interceptor drain, and they would include that in their annual report. It'd be very interesting to see exactly how much comes out of, well, Terry doesn't go in there, but Sucker, Highland, Cress, and the catch basins along the highway.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting to see this.
Yeah, without a doubt, some of the reports that I would dig in through too show things like that. Actually, I found a report prior to 1915 that was showing how much water we'd be losing when the interceptor was built. How much water input the North Watuppa would be losing. And stuff like that. So yeah,
And it's a large amount.
yeah, yep, without a doubt. Because that's a big drainage area that comes down into that interceptor drain.
You know, when you look at it topographically, and you look at it topographically, and then you look at the old FST map that showed you where all of the brooks came in, it's an incredible drainage from basically Robeson Street east.
Yeah, you're talking all the way from Valentine in the north, the cemetery up north there, Robeson, all goes down into.
Yeah, and then east or north of that it goes Steep Brook.
Steep Brook.
Yeah.
That way, yeah.
This is going to be a very interesting study. I'm looking forward to this. So we have a proposal in the amount of $25,000. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 5, Wright Pierce. This is addendum number 1 on our fluoride. And Mr. Clerk, we're proceeding along.
Yeah, so we had an initial study done by Ray Pierce on fluoride addition to the water treatment plant and updating that system. This is including the full design of that new fluoride system for the water treatment plant. I put this in front of the board, but I'm still waiting on ARPA funding to be approved for the use of this. If the board does approve this may sit for a while until I have that ARPA funding secured.
Until funding is secured. Okay, Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on to item number 6, Santec change order number 3, ARPA water and roadway improvements in the amount of $191,500. Mr. Clerk.
So this is in relation to the APA water main replacement contract that has been undergoing the end of last year, this whole summer, and we'll finish up in the spring. Through the contract, we added on a lot of some additional work for the contractor, which also adds in additional time needed for our inspectional services. We added on the balance of Oak Grove Avenue to go all the way from Locust all the way up to New Boston Road, including the New Boston Road intersection, which we went out into that intersection just due to the fact that last year we had a major break in that intersection. And that's one of the reasons that we ended up doing that. So that's why we did go into that new pavement there, because I know some people have asked. But that will be redone when we repave that section of Oak Grove from Locust all the way up.
Big foundation going in on that corner.
Yeah, so that project on the corner of Oak Grove and New Boston Road came in front of site plan review. It's a smaller commercial building that's being put in there. So this will be additional services required for all that additional inspection time, as-built and other things that are required for the engineering consultant to do on the ARPA project.
All right. Are there any questions concerning? No questions. Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we are Heister LLC contract water supply yield study.
So this is an interesting one. So we went out to RFQ. This company was the lowest responsible bidder. The only one, just for the record, that did supply a proposal. This is in relation to an MVP grant that we got last year, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant. The grant application that we submitted is a partnership between us and Serped, and we were awarded the grant of a little bit over $130,000. This is to take a look at our whole entire yield study. So they don't call it a safe yield anymore. They call it, you look at more your firm yield.
Firm yield.
And there's other plays on the yield. But what we really want to do, so this is kind of building also on another prior study that we did, the interconnect study that shows how, the potential to be able to supply Somerset, Dayton, Swansea, and other surrounding communities with water. We know North Watuppa, our yields right now are based off of what was designated back in 1984 when they did the yield study for our registration, and they took the prior years and kind of grouped those together and said, hey, this is what we're calling your safe yield. Copaca has had a basic study when it was originally generated back in the 70s when the dam was built. 2011, there was a real rough update that was done by DEP on some of the water supplies. South Watuppa has never really been looked at, and South Watuppa is listed as one of our emergency water supplies. So our primary is the North Watuppa Pond, secondary is Copaca. On our registration, South Watuppa is still listed as an emergency water supply. In the future, and again, that's why we bought the property, the old Dave's Beach property off of Jefferson Street, is for a future water treatment plant. So, if we ever need to tap into that resource to supply other surrounding communities, what would our yield look like? What would we safely be able to supply? Right now, our registrations are 14.9. So there's a lot of things that play into this. I think I've talked to the board about the change in the Water Management Act that DEP made last year that we're appealing to the Supreme Court. But there is no decision whether we're going to win yet or not. That filing, along with a bunch of other communities. But that really kind of, we need to know what our current yield is and how it impacts it. Back at the napkin calculations, right now, we have 1.96 times our yearly safety yield in storage. If we can get it, the water management, the changes to the Water Management Act says that if you have 2 or greater, you don't fall underneath the new changes in the regulations. So we're 0.04 off. If we're able to do this study, prove that we have more than 2 times the safe yield, including South Watuppa, which is on our registration, then we may not have to fall underneath those water restricting regulations.
Would you, during this examination, would you have them take a look at what was classified as an industrial water supply of Nokichoke, which was...
So Nokichoke is still listed on our registration as well.
Okay.
And Nokichoke was used in multiple different, it was looked at, I think, originally back in the 20s and 30s as supplement for North Watuppa.
Yes.
It was finally put in use as supplement for South Watuppa for the industrial use of the water.
That's right.
Currently, there is nothing attached to Nokichoke. We will kind of investigate that a little bit, but we're not gonna go in full depth because some of the upstream circumstances within Lake Nokichoke, I would be a little bit potentially concerned of the quality there and whether it is actually usable.
Yeah. Well, be something to look at anyway.
Yeah. There's a lot of different things out there. Dartmouth isn't very far from Copacut, their water distribution system, which I've heard that they've had issues with their wells. They're not far from Westport, connection to Westport, which would come directly from our treatment plants. There's a lot of different options out there, and we have a lot of resources, and I think we need to position ourselves right now while we can to be a good supplier within the region.
I think that's an excellent plan. Any questions?
None? Nope.
Concerns? All right, the chair would entertain a motion to approve $90,000 for the water supply yield study.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Which brings us to item number 8, A.D. Poloni change order. Number 2 in the amount of $815,000, and I don't think anyone will be shocked to find they found more things than they had originally anticipated.
Yes, so just in relation to this change order is increasing the amount of verifications to be done by A.D. Paolini and the amount of lead services for them to replace and associated work. Sidewalks with and some other things. So, A.D. Paolini is the contractor that won the bid about 6 months ago for the lead service replacement contract. They have been moving right through. Right now, one of the toughest things that we're having trouble finding is actually finding the lead services. These numbers, they were the low bidder when they came in. There was 3 bidders, 2 of them were very close together, a third one was much higher than the other 2, and Paolini was awarded. The numbers are very competitive. They've agreed not to no increases for these increased quantities. So I feel that we, to keep this ball rolling, keep moving with the lead service replacing, investigating lead services, this change order will be well suited. We will also be going out for a contract. We're under design, probably mid-January or so. It'll be out on the street for open bidding to continue the lead service replacement.
Excellent, excellent. Any questions on the increase? I hear none. Chair would entertain a motion to...
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to the end of the meeting agenda, but I would like to take a minute here and just bring you up to speed on some things I have researched and found, and I think this is of great interest, so bear with me. On January 3rd, 1870, Mayor Samuel M. Brown, in his inaugural speech, said that the goal of his administration would be to bring drinking water to the city of Fall River. And they formed the Water Board, they formed the Reservoir Commission, the Water Commission, and on January 5th, 1874, or 150 years this coming January 5th, the steam engine was started, and on January 8th, the water filled they put a 24 and an 8-inch down Bedford, and on the 8th, the water reached Main Street. So from that time forward, there were hydrants, laterals, and following that, in September of that year, was the Granite Mill fire. And one of the reasons the Granite Mill fire didn't take out everything was they had water. There was a loss of life. I believe there were over 25 fatalities. But going over the old books, one of the things that I found, not lost, they're here, but there's some very interesting history, and going over it, I found two things that I thought I'd just like to share with you this evening. One is the plant was built in the pond. They put a cofferdam out into the pond and cracked through 16 feet of granite and excavated, got down to where they could pour foundation. They put a couple of feet of concrete and laid granite in there and built the water pumping station, and that's why I always wondered why the driveway went around in a horseshoe. Well, it's because they were out in the pond. The other thing that they designed was that they were going to pump the water up the hill to where the tanks are on Bedford Street now, and build a 30 million gallon reservoir on Reservoir Street. And the idea was to shut the steam engine down at night and gravity feed the city from the 30 million gallon reservoir. They elected later to go to 4 standpipes. They built the original tower, which contained 2 standpipes, a high pressure and a low pressure. And then from there they constructed, I think in order, it'd be Townsend Hill, Haskell, and Bedford in that order. But it's fascinating. So one of the things I'm doing is highlighting each year number of gallons pumped, rainfall, yield, and we'll have that for 150 odd years. But the history is really something. The fact that we've been supplying water for 150 years, I think it's a big deal. So,
We get a party. Maybe we get to have a party in the office party, and then maybe
well,
people who,
we have
they deserve
we have a new building to dedicate this summer. Perhaps we could come up with something.
Yeah, so just to touch on that, 2020 was the 150-year anniversary of the water department, and I was planning on a celebration kind of that year. What happened? We kind of got squashed. But with President Terrio finding out this information, I didn't know that 24 is 150 years of us supplying the actual water to the residents of the city of Fall River for domestic and fire protection. So I think that's kind of a good point to be able to kind of piggyback on, since we got stolen from the 2020 celebration, to be able to hold a celebration. My hopes is in the spring, because I've had some inquiries about the new building. As you know, they just demolished the old building. Pavement's still got to get completed, as well as some other work. So that they're finishing that up. My plan is in the spring to have a water department community day, open up our building to the public, as well as tours of our plant or our older facilities down there, and allow the public to be able
That's
to
a
come in
wonderful idea.
and view what we have. So.
That's a wonderful idea, and I think it's the kind of a thing in which we can all take a great deal of pride in, but I think community awareness, in reading over the history, especially the concern that they had in researching lead as the proper service material. Even they checked in with Paris, with the Paris Water Department, who were outfitting the City of Lights with new lead service, and the French scientific establishment all agreed that that was the way to go. And there was no, because the buildup of calcium on the inside precluded any lead poisoning, which was rather an interesting thing back then. But I think that'd be a terrific idea to do something along those lines, and maybe speak to some of our vendors about tchotchkes or something.
Maybe a dunk tank for Mr. Terrio to be in for a couple hours.
I think a 3-seat dunk tank with the commissioners.
Do you really think that's a useful use?
City water?
City water?
Well, we could take it from the interceptor drain.
Okay, all right.
Better.
I guess we should deny that. Yes.
You can always vote against it. But no, I think that's a great idea, Paul, is to have a community day and community awareness. I mean, I get really hung up in history a lot, but I was thinking how much easier it was after January of 1874 for somebody, living in an apartment or having a business or having, just a fire protection alone. But the delivery of water, and it's really interesting at the speed at which the system, we're talking 4 years, they went from a proposal to being fully operational as far as they were, and then each year afterwards. This report takes us from 1871 to 1878, and the explosion of services. The demand for services is just incredible. So we have a rich history, and I think it'd be nice to inform people about it.
Without a doubt.
Definitely.
Is there anything else to come before the board this evening? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn it.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.